Americans have traditionally valued such things as personal liberty, personal freedoms, treasured amendments to the American Constitution. But of late, it would seem that the tyrannical head of socialism has risen up, and it would seem that many appreciate it and even desire it to be so. Do we think we would be any better off under a Torah-based society? Hi, this is Barry Phillips with 10-Minute Torah, day number 1 of the Torah portion, Shoftim, the word meaning judges. We began today in Devarim, or Deuteronomy, chapter number 16, and we're going to begin reading with verse number 18. Appoint judges and officers within all your gates, which Yahweh your Elohim has given you according to your tribes, and they shall judge the people with righteous right ruling. Do not distort right ruling, do not show partiality, nor take a bribe, for a bribe blinds the eyes of the wise and twists the words of the righteous. Follow righteousness alone, so that you live and inherit the land which Yahweh your Elohim is giving you. So we began today with this opening verse pertaining to judges. As we continue into chapter 17, we will look at the role of a king. In chapter number 18, the role of the Levite, and then also that of the prophet is described. So this portion is describing the authority of Yahweh over his people and the 4 chief branches of government, if you will. There is the judicial or legislative branch, which is in the office of Shoftim, the judges. These judges are to be appointed in each locale, in each city within the gates. The gate of a city, scripturally, is the courtroom. It's the place of jurisprudence. It's where Boaz went to secure the right to marry Ruth. It's where the messengers found Lot when they came to the city of Sodom and Gomorrah, or to Sodom in particular. So the question is asked then, had Lot bought himself from the sale of all of his great wealth outside the city and moved into the city? Had he bought himself a judge's role? That's where they found him. So the men who sit in the city are the judges, and they are to be without any bribery. They are to be above all suspicion. The scripture says that they're not to look on one's face. That is, they're not to recognize a man's wealth, status, pedigree, or position, or lack thereof in the offering of righteous judgment. We also look then at the executive branch, which falls in the role of the king. Now it says at one time you're going to desire to have a sovereign over you like the nations. When you do so, this is how he is to operate. The priest is the ritual branch. We may not think that rituals have much of a place for us. Unfortunately, we've lost the value to some degree of ritual and the understanding of liturgy. Things that teach us the importance of our traditions and our understandings of Scripture. Another teaching another time, but there is a desired and necessary and kingdom role for the priest to carry out observance and propriety, the keeping of protocols and the ritual process. And then finally, we have the role of the prophet, which is the spiritual office. We might have thought that would belong to the priest, but the priest is ritual. It's the prophet who operates as the authority in the spiritual realm. When all of these 4 offices work together in right balance and propriety, then the people of Elohim have a sense of well-being and security. Now, the goal of a Torah-based society is to bring the revelation of Yah and the identity of his Messiah, not only to Am Israel, but then through Am Israel to the nations. in the kingdom of Yeshua, as it appears on the earth, it will be our role then to disseminate the knowledge of the Most High and the authority, the identity of Yeshua as the Messiah to the Goyim nations in the earth. And we will be successful, evidently, to the degree that Isaiah in chapter number 2 says that men will say to one another, "Come, let us go up to Mount Sion, for we hear that the word of Yah is coming forth from Mount Sion," and that they will come and they will hear the Torah being declared. Who will do that? It will be Yeshua. We will finally have the single most authoritative figure that could possibly exist to teach us the propriety and the right understanding of the Torah once and for all. No more arguing, no more debating. It will be resolved and settled in all issues, finally. So as we see this taking place, then we see that the government and society is infused with the presence of the Most High. Truth, righteousness, and justice will prevail in all areas of our living. Now, as Americans, we have a cultural, traditional, generational resistance to personal interference of government into our lives. Many in this nation currently are chafing and struggling with perceived impositions being placed upon us. Make no mistake about it, America is at a crossroads. We're either going to rise up in some form and means, preferably it will be peaceful, that we can throw off the yokes that are seeking to be placed upon us, or we will acquiesce, we will yield, and we will fall to the wayside of greatness and become among the parity of other nations. May Yah help us. But we resist. And what about the kingdom when it comes? Will this attitude of resistance to the king and his monarchy authority in the earth, will we rebel against the Most High? Or will we say this is actually good for us? When we perceive that we're being overwhelmed, that someone is constantly looking over our shoulder and scrutinizing the minute details of our living, there's a human ingrained resistance to that. Nobody appreciates heavy-handedness and oppression and a yoke around the neck that chokes us and prevents us from living. The Torah doesn't do that. The idea of these various branches of government as they work together is to provide security, right declared boundaries so that we can have a proper understanding of what is right, what's wrong, what's light, what's dark, what's clean, what's unclean, what's acceptable, what's not acceptable. And once we know, then within the parameters and boundaries of what has been decreed for us, we have liberty to move in the midst of that. Unless we have the idea then that is going to be a very small space, a very confining space, a very limiting space, let us also understand that the Torah is about liberty. Yaakov says that it is the perfect law of liberty. Yah wants to free us to live righteously without the confining restrictions of exile and sin and debauchery and the frailties of man. Yah wants to open up the boundaries within that which is permissible, acceptable, and desirable for his people. From him, there is great joy. There is life to the full. We will miss out on nothing. Yah is not looking to put shackles on us, but to break those chains through the righteousness of his word. We have something to look forward to. The governments of men are going to fail. The government of Yeshua is going to be an awesome thing. More tomorrow. So then, shalom.